My name is Carly. I am working as a conscious living coach, which is a really fancy way of saying I like to work with people so they can make healthier choices and feel better, and then learn how that connects to our world and how it connects to our planet and our earth, and how changing yourself can help change the people around you. So I'm going to start with some facts that might be a little bit of a bummer. So I'm just going to lay that out there first, right? It's about the effects of animal agriculture and animal products on our environment, but I'm not going to leave you there. We're going to talk about good things afterwards. So stick with me through some of the facts that might be a bummer, but it's important to learn about. So I want to say before this, I love talking about being plant-based, being vegan. I know the vegan word makes some people retreat a little bit, but I love talking about it because it is a solution, not the solution, but a really good way to connect to your body and also the planet. So let's get going with some info. There are a lot of effects on our earth, the water, land, oceans, and air pollution from animal agriculture and the dairy and beef and meat industry. So water. Animal agriculture water consumption ranges from 34 to 76 trillion gallons annually. Agriculture is responsible for 80 to 90% of US water consumption. That's a whole lot. Growing feed crops for livestock consumes 50% of water in the US. This one always really gets me. 2,500 gallons of water are needed to produce 1 pound of beef. 2,500 gallons of water for 1 pound of beef. 477 gallons of water are required to produce 1 pound of eggs. Almost 900 gallons of water are needed for 1 pound of cheese, and 1,000 gallons of water are required to produce 1 gallon of milk. Now, there are a lot of other processed foods and things that aren't vegan that also are really water intensive and land intensive. We'll talk about that after, but this is just for animal agriculture. So the effects on our land. Livestock or livestock feed occupies 1/3 of the Earth's ice-free land. That's a whole lot. Livestock covers 45%, about 50% of the Earth's total land. You'll remember some of the fires and things that were happening in other countries a few years ago. A lot of that was actually deforestation and things because they were just clearing land for livestock. So places like the jungle and the Amazon, they are actually clearing that land for livestock to keep up with the demand of countries like the US. Livestock operations on land have created more than 500 nitrogen flooded dead zones around the world in our oceans. You are an ocean lover. That one always really gets me too. Speaking of oceans, 3/4 of the world's fisheries are exploited or depleted. We could see fishless oceans by 2048. So I said these things are really sad and they're really grim, but they are real, and it's important to talk about them even if it makes us uncomfortable or feel bad. And I get if you're starting to feel like, oh crap, what do I do now? But this presentation isn't to make you feel ashamed. It is just to give you some facts and hopefully provide you with some tools to move forward and feel like you can maybe make better choices. So oceans, as many as 2.7 trillion animals are pulled from the ocean each year. For every 1 pound of fish caught, up to 5 pounds of unintended marine species are caught and discarded. So there's a lot of bycatch in the fishing industry. So a lot of things just kind of get thrown aside. And then air pollution. A new study published in the journal Nature finds that the amount of carbon dioxide released into the ocean from trawling, which is dragging heavy nets across the bottom of the ocean to kind of get whatever's down there, is larger than most countries' annual carbon emissions and similar to annual carbon dioxide emissions from global aviation. So those are really, really big comparisons. Animal agriculture is responsible for 18% of greenhouse gas emissions, more than the combined exhaust from all transportation. Transportation exhaust is responsible for 13% of all greenhouse gases, and cows produce 150 billion gallons of methane per day. Every day. That's a lot, right? You hear jokes about cow farts and burps, and that's literally what it is. because of all the livestock that we have and the land cleared for it. So that is the problems, right? That animal agriculture is just having devastating effects on our land. But there are a lot of really, really great things to look for to provide some hope. So the authors of Climate Change 2022 say that studies demonstrate a shift to plant-based diets rich in, that's not the right word, something, nuts, fruits, vegetables, could lead to substantial reduction of greenhouse gas emissions as compared to current dietary patterns. So what I want to really highlight here is that I'm not expecting everyone in this room to go home and go vegan. If you do, that's great. Let me know. That would be amazing feedback. However, I'm not expecting that because that's okay. What we can do is start where we are and look at these things and think, can I do anything? And you absolutely can. A report published in The Lancet in 2019 concluded that a dietary shift toward plant foods and away from animal products is vital for promoting the health of our planet. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that there is also a lot of benefits for your health. And if you're an animal lover, I'm not going to get into those things today, but that's also really my sweet spot, is learning about the health of plants too. So we can talk about that after if anyone's interested.
That pulses is a weird word, it's legumes.
Perfect, it is the right word.
I knew it was something else. I had a little.
Yeah, I absolutely did that. Legumes, pulses, that's absolutely what I meant. Thank you. Learn something new while you're presenting. And then a global shift to a plant-based diet could reduce mortality and greenhouse gases caused by food production by 10 and 70% respectively by 2050. So I imagine that you're here at this Earth Fair because you have some sort of love for making this world a better place. And you've probably heard about how we have like so much time to make a difference. We have so much time to do things, to reverse things. And this is a really big thing you can do. And I know it can be a little intimidating because food is central to every day. Food is connected to memories, food is connected to culture, food is connected to all of the things that we do every day and we think about. So it can be scary. It's easier to think about maybe grabbing a reusable bag than it is to shift what's on our plate. But I want to give you some tips. Start where you are. I personally can tell you not to do what I did, which is to decide overnight that I had to change everything and then overwhelm myself because it was too much and I needed to learn more first. So really just make sure you start where you are. Make your favorite meals vegan. When I have people reach out to me and they're like, what do I eat? I don't like tofu. If I had a dime for everyone someone said they couldn't be vegan because of tofu, I could probably pay off my student debt. However, there are more things than tofu. If you love spaghetti or if you love a chicken sandwich, you can make those a plant-based option. Just start with the things you already really love so you're enjoying what you're eating. Be realistic about what's possible. This is not only for you, but for the circumstances in your life, right? Like it's not always going to go to plan. I was at a restaurant on vacation and accidentally got served a chicken meal, didn't notice, and I felt really bad. And then I was like, that's just part of it, right? We can't always control the circumstances around us, and be realistic about what's possible and don't be too hard on yourself. Plan ahead. I think that can be a deterrent for some. It's not always fun to plan ahead when you're thinking about food, but if you're gonna go to a new restaurant, just see what options they have so you know ahead of time so you don't get there and end up disappointed or have to have the classic side salad and french fries. Every vegan's favorite meal at restaurants that don't have other options. Do some research before grocery shopping. Don't like run down to the co-op and say I'm gonna be vegan and then you're looking at all these products you've never heard of and you're so overwhelmed. Do some research. I've got some great cookbooks and things on the table. If you want to take pictures to look at, just make sure you go in there with some knowledge so you don't, again, feel overwhelmed. Because when we feel overwhelmed about making changes in our life, we don't do it, right? It just becomes too much. Find community. This is really, really important. It can be really hard, but it's nice to be able to talk to other people about this journey. Like, whether it's recipes or did you see this video or whatever it is, if it's online, if you have community in Grand Marais, if you're in the county, you already have community of at least one. Two, right? Two. So there is a really beautiful piece in finding community when you're making changes in your life. And finally, eat enough food. So I've had many people reach out and say, I tried to go vegan, but I'm really hungry. So what we do oftentimes is we remove something off our plate. So let's say you take meat off your plate, or you take cheese off your plate, and then you don't replace it with anything, and then you're hungry, of course, right? You're hungry. So make sure you're eating enough food and finding things that are nourishing you and make you enjoy your meals. I want to make it clear that I am not here to tell you this is the solution, right? It's going to take a lot of different things, a lot of different people thinking about solutions in different ways. It's not a perfect option either, right? We live in an area that is pretty remote, so we have to have food travel all over the country oftentimes to get things that aren't in season. Processed foods, you can be vegan these days in 2022 and still eat really crappy food, which is great if you want like an ice cream alternative or a snack or something, but you still can think about the way that that food was made. It's not a perfect solution either. I heard something just recently actually about a climatarian diet, about eating for the climate. So eating things in season, eating things prioritizing grown locally. So that's a good way to think about it too. It doesn't have to be just plants, but can you kind of reduce the impact of the food that you're eating in some way? Oh, that was too far. So I also want to mention that there are a lot of reasons that people may not be able to go plant-based. I have a ton of privilege, and I was able to go to the store, have enough money to try some of these things that maybe were in a different budget, the processed foods, not like rice and beans and stuff. But there are a lot of factors that keep people from trying that. So I want to make sure I say that I know that I'm very lucky to be able to make this choice. And if you are as well, that you may be thinking about it, you can make a huge impact. And we can tell in 2022 that the markets are shifting. There are so many, I mean, if you go to the co-op right now in town, or actually a couple of the grocery stores, there's so many more vegan ice cream options than when my 6th grade best friend in Cook County was vegan, eating rice milk ice cream. That was it. It wasn't good. I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't great. So there are so many more options that allow you to have some fun with it and not feel like you're not losing your favorite things or getting to indulge. Yeah, I think I got through it all. Hope you heard me over the music. I think good. Does anybody have any questions or anything?
I have a thought that I'd like to see what your thought is too.
Sure.
I've been a vegan for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when you were talking about the rice cream not being so good, there was some stuff that wasn't so good. But nowadays it's like palate pleaser. And I look at it as a food evolution. And I wonder, like, what did dairy ice cream or cheese taste like when they very first started making it? So I'd like to hear your perspective on looking at it actually as an evolution in the market. It takes time for any market, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important to think of it as a process, right? So there are so many good documentaries and so many resources nowadays too to find out information. The Game Changers documentary on Netflix is a really, really great one to start. Has a lot of professional athletes, and it's really fun to see them, like they have tests done after certain meals, and it's a really good one. And I bring that up with what you just said. The way they explained it is that, you know, decades ago, there were doctors that were recommending what their favorite cigarette was, right? Like that was a normal thing to have in an ad. And so when everyone was like, oh, maybe that's not a good idea, that's not so healthy, maybe they shouldn't be promoting that. This this documentary puts forth the idea that something had to take its place in marketing. And that's when big agriculture and like the meat and dairy industry came in, and you see there's like years where you see the shift from a lot of cigarette tobacco ads to a lot of like got milk and a lot of like the beef and burgers and all of that rising. So there's actually, I think, not only a market shift, but it's a capitalist thing, right? That we see these things shifting as our consciousness as a community grows, which is why I think it's so cool that we have power, you go with your dollar, right? That you get to shift the market. And we can see those things, like I said, like move beyond rice stream and all of those things, you can see it ebb and flow. So I think it is a little bit of taking our time and understanding that products take a while to figure out what tastes good too. There's a lot, there's some, I'm not gonna lie, there's some like vegan cheeses that I never want to eat again. Not all of it is perfect, but there are some really good options now, and it's really exciting to see it keep shifting. Anybody else have any questions or anything? Yes.
I've read that a lot of like the fake chicken.
Like the Beyond Meat and
but the processing those things is not exactly environmentally friendly.
Absolutely, and that is one of the things I have here. The processed food, that's why it's not the solution. I don't want to pretend that just by going vegan, you are automatically like the environmental queen, king, whatever title you want. Because there are a lot of other issues, right? Some of those alternatives, while they're really good, a Beyond Meat burger, the first time I had it, it freaked me out because it was so similar. I was like, are we sure? Did I order the right thing? But it's not a perfect solution. So I kind of think of those as like an indulgence, maybe a treat, not to replace something every day, because it's also really water intensive, labor intensive, and it's still processed. So it's not, it's better for you, but it's not the best option. Yeah, it's good to keep in mind. Any other questions or anything? If you think of anything afterwards too, I'm always available. I really love talking about this stuff, if you can't tell. So if anything comes up for you, please don't hesitate to reach out. My email is consciouslycarly@gmail.com. Same website, same social media. I'm always there to chat if you have questions about it. Thanks, everybody.